double glazing these windows. The lamps would have been lit by gas at one time, now they're electric. And there should have been a church at either end. There was a church at this end. This was St George's Church. Sadly, in 1969 this building started to collapse, this large building, so they had to shore it up. The church moved out, and it's now part of Register House, National Records of Scotland. The square in the middle is usually a beautiful glass square. We've just finished having the International Book Festival here. There were lots of pavilions right round, so the grass is all muddy at the moment, but it'll be relaid and be back to... It's amazing how it changes, goes right back. The statue in the middle is of Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband. The Queen loved this statue so much that when it was unveiled, she knighted the sculptor John Steele straight away. Then she asked him to do a statue of herself, which he did do, and she hated it. We'll see that in a bit. I spoke about the old house where everybody lived together. The rich from that part moved down to this building, and they had this whole building, the Georgian house. You can visit the Georgian house, and it's lovely to visit in there. In the basement, you have a video room. They've made a sort of documentary about one of the families. Obviously, it's all played by actors, original families. The father of the house, he got his portrait painted and just drunk in it all day. He didn't really do much. When they ran out of money, he just sold more land. The lady of the house, she taught her daughters to become ladies and look for rich husbands. The two boys, they were educated, they went to school. And it goes right down to the little maid, who was only 11 years old, and she worked 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. 6.5 days a week actually. She got half day off to go and visit her parents. For no more than her keep, her bed and her food. Now you might think this is pretty cruel. The difference being, when you see the film, it actually explains, her parents explain how delighted they are that she's living down here. Although she's working hard, as she grew up, the chances are she might meet the butler next door or a footman or somebody. So her lifestyle would come up. She would be fed, she would have decent water. Up in the old town, they'd be lucky fed twice a week. People were dying, disease-ridden. It was absolutely horrendous up there. So they were quite convinced that she was going to have a better life. Even if she went on to marry, she would probably still be in service all her life, looking after the gentry. Never even changed for a few generations after that. There was an awful lot of orphans around the city in the 1800s because of the disease of the old town. People were dying, a lot of children running almost wild. There's a statue just down at the lights here to a lady called Catherine Sinclair. Now Catherine Sinclair... Queen Street, again a lovely wide street with gardens on one side and buildings on the other, just as Princess Street has the gardens on one side. The Queen Street gardens are actually private. If you own a building, you have a key into the gardens. Up until a few years ago, the people that owned these gardens still had to pay £500 for the key. But I think they started complaining what's quite right. The gardens here on the other side of the gardens, it's where Robert Louis Stevenson lived. Robert Louis Stevenson was related to the Stevensons who built the lighthouses right around Great Britain. He had a really bad health, and there was no way he was going to work out in the North Sea with his uncle and his father, etc. He was actually very spoiled. He was spoiled as a boy. He went to school, he didn't like school. Sent him to another school, didn't like that one either, so they got private tutors. And the tutors would take him into the gardens and would sit and talk and educate him there. Buildings have been split into businesses or different apartments. We're just going to come up to a door pretty soon. Number 52. It's a blue door and it'll be open. And this was the home of a man called James Young Simpson. Now James Young Simpson was a doctor here in the city, and he invented anaesthetic, but he did it in a very unusual way. He'd invite guests for dinner. He would, after dinner, when the men had their whiskey or their brandies and their cigars, he'd hand round little bits of cloth dipped in chloroform, all different strands. He'd wave it under your nose and he'd time you to see how long it would take you to pass out. And then again, how long it was to wake up. Now he was lucky nobody died, but he didn't. This is how anaesthetic was informed. And he became Queen Victoria's physician, and she used anaesthetic after the birth, for the birth of her 7th child, Prince Leopold. And she said it was almost pleasurable giving birth with anaesthetic. Don't know if any ladies would agree with that, but that's his grandchildren. And if you needed help and you couldn't pay, you wouldn't pay. That was the system, so his door was always open. It was claimed that he saved a little boy who was only 7 years old, who would almost certainly have died. Place today, but it's still running. He had a philosophy. His philosophy was, if you have two things in life, you can achieve anything. And it's probably quite relevant today. If you have health and if you have education, the rest of what you do in your life, you can make anything you want to come true. It probably is still quite relevant today in this day of greed and austerity that's going on. So he was a fantastic man, great man. I spoke earlier about, so he got a kilt made. Sadly he got made in London. Now, the kilt turned out to be a mini kilt. A gentleman's kilt should come to the top of the knee, but the knee was down, it should just touch the ground and no more. George had a mini kilt on. George of course was very flamboyant. He had his kilt encrusted in diamonds. If you bought a kilt today, it would be £130,000. That's how much it was worth. But he did come to Scotland and came here. Now if you look at, there's a statue at the top of the street and you see George IV, and he looks tall and slim and handsome. He was 5'2", with a 56-inch waist. He had halitosis on his breast. There was nothing very much going there. I'm describing him as not very handsome, which he wasn't, but he was very much a ladies' man. So we held a ball along George Street for him, and 200 ladies were invited to the ball. Now the ladies were all excited, the kings arriving, never seen the king before, no pictures or paintings or anything of him. So they were all lined up. So you can imagine this little fat man with a tartan mini kilt, encrusted diamonds, stepping out this carriage. Traditionally, gentlemen don't really wear anything underneath the kilt, so they gave King George some pink silk stockings to cover up his modesty. I spoke about Queen Victoria getting a monument built to herself. It was straight ahead on top of the galleries. You can see it. This monument, you can get down there, was sculpted here in Edinburgh, taken by train to London, installed outside Buckingham Palace. You see it just up here. The Queen looked at it and she was not amused. She said, send that back to Edinburgh. She thought she looked fat in it. She was clipping up the mound. This was a natural walkway from the old town to the new town, and when they cleared out the streets, they just built all to link it together. Today on the right hand side you see some lovely gardens, the West Prince Street Gardens. These are gorgeous gardens, you can have a wander through today. At one time this was a loch, the Scottish Lake, the North Loch it was called. Sadly up in the old town all the dirt and muck poured in here and became very, very dirty. If we were this close, the chances are you would hallucinate or pass out. Horrible. So they've drained it. Thankfully we've got some lovely gardens today. This is also where we used to try witches. If you were accused of being a witch, they'd tie your fingers together, your thumbs, your big toe, throw you into the water. If you sank, you were innocent. If you floated to the top, you were guilty. And they took you up by the castle and they hanged you. When that lake rock was drained, there was over 200 skeletons in it. Today, up near the castle, there's a little monument with flowers and fresh flowers to these poor ladies who anybody could have been accused of it. The horrible, horrible deed that was done to them. So folks, we're going to come to the last stop on our tour, just through the lights and down. We'll see a nice look out to Princess Street Gardens, the last view of the gardens. You can see Sir Walter Scott Monument, the man who done everything for this country, and in fact who invented tourism here in Scotland. If he hadn't written these beautiful books telling about the Scottish people and the Scottish lands, you probably wouldn't be sitting on a tour bus today. I wouldn't have had the joy of taking you around. My days, a fantastic job this, going round to town, speaking to everybody, meeting such lovely people. So on behalf of myself, Susie, Kevin, our driver, and Robertus, thanks very much for being with us this morning folks, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and your time in the city. If you want to stay on the bus, it will be going, but it'll be about 20 minutes I would think before they move round, something like that. There will be another guide coming on to carry on your tour. It's just going to go the same direction, but if you want to go anywhere. So again folks, thanks a lot and have a good afternoon. Take care.